Hey friends, Tim Mannn here, bringing you this week's edition of Virtual Healing School. Listen, I'd like to ask you as we start the lesson today, let me pray for you. Send me your prayer requests. Just simply go to my email, which is listed here below, and tell me your first name, and then tell me what's going on in your life, what you would like for me to pray about, and I will pray for you. I have learned over the years how to pray effective prayers and get people healed. I would love to do that for you. I'd also like to help you with more teaching. And so I'm inviting you to go to our Virtual Healing School YouTube page. And if you just go to YouTube, just get into your YouTube app on your computer, on your smartphone or your tablet, and type in Virtual Healing School. And that'll bring our page up. Now it'll ask you there if you'd like to subscribe, and if you'll click yes, what that'll do is it'll open up everything to you, all of our past videos. I think there's like 70 some, 80 some now teaching videos just like this one concerning biblical healing and health. And so I'd love for you to begin to watch those and listen to them and maybe make some notes because I want you to be healed. All right, let's get right into our lesson today. I've entitled this lesson, Praying in the Spirit and Healing. Praying in the Spirit and Healing. And this is part of our series is the Holy Spirit helps us in healing. The Holy Spirit helps us in healing. So I want to go to our verse today, and that is in the book of Romans, chapter 8, verse 26. Romans, chapter 8, verse 26. And it says, likewise, the Spirit also helpeth our infirmities. For we know not what we should pray for as we ought, but the Spirit Himself makes intercession for us with groanings which cannot be uttered. And so here we've talked about this last week when we were dialoguing around this and dissecting this verse. We talked about the word infirmity. It's translated also in the New Testament, sickness. It's the Greek word asthenia, and it means a malady, a frailty, a disease, a sickness. It's the state of being ill and incapacitated in some manner, even disability, or specifically the weakness that comes with sickness. Notice here that the Spirit helpeth our infirmities. Now the word helpeth there, kind of a, well, you know, it's not a good translation concerning the meaty part of what this ancient biblical Greek word is. It's the word sunanti lambano. Sunanti lambano. It's made up of three different Greek words. It's made up of the word sun, which means together with. It's made up of the word anti, which is against, and it's made up of the word lambano, which means to take or to pick something up. And basically what this means is it speaks of the action of somebody else that comes along our side and takes hold together with us against whatever we're fighting against. Now that person is the Holy Spirit. He takes hold together with us against whatever we're fighting against. And in this verse, in this context, it is our infirmities. It's the kinds of diseases that makes disabilities. He wants to go after especially the worst kind, but He'll come after every sickness and disease that tries to attack us. But what I want to do in this, and we taught on this last week, the first part, but I want to teach this week on the subject of how He does that according to this verse. Now I want you to notice here in verse 26, it says that the Spirit Himself makes intercession for us. Now wait a minute, let's pause a minute and think about this. The Holy Spirit, the third person in the Trinity, God the Holy Spirit will pray for me concerning the sicknesses and diseases that are attacking me. He'll hook up with me. He'll take hold together with me against that sickness and disease. Listen, we need to know how to pray this way to get the Holy Spirit to begin to take hold together with us. My portion is I'm praying and letting Him pray through me, and He begins to wage war against that sickness and disease. Now, one thing I've learned over the years is when the Holy Spirit prays, He always gets His prayers answered. Can you imagine that the Holy Spirit is going to go before the throne of the Father on your behalf concerning sickness and disease? He's going to pray with you, for you, against that sickness and disease. That's what it is. He's praying against this stuff. He's praying for your healing and against the sickness. My goodness, He prays perfect prayers. He's God the Holy Spirit. Listen, He is the power of God. There is no power available that can even come close to Him. There's no force out in the universe that can keep His prayers from being answered. You need to learn how to pray so that the Holy Spirit is interceding on your behalf. It says here again, He makes intercession for us in verse 26. How does He do that? Well, it says here, goes on, He does this, makes intercession for us with groanings which cannot be uttered. Groanings which cannot be uttered. That's the Holy Spirit doing that, but He does it through your voice. Now, what does He mean, groanings that cannot be uttered? Groanings are sounds that rise from the inside. It really doesn't mean groanings. They just kind of, the King James Version picked a word to try to emphasize these sounds that rise from the inside. You know, when you groan, when you sigh, maybe when you're sorrowful and you're kind of in tears, there's sounds that rise from the inside of pain, of agony, or even if you're super happy, of joy. How can you not laugh? How can you not rejoice when great joy begins to come on you over a miracle or a great event that has happened in your life? That's what this word groanings means, all right? He makes intercession for us with these kinds of words, these kinds of expressions and sounds rising from the inside. Well, it says, it goes on, that He makes intercession for us with these groanings or these sounds which cannot be uttered. Now, the word uttered here does not mean unspoken. It means sounds or words that you can't articulate. You just don't have any words. Have you ever been in pain or you've been in joy to the point there's no words to express what's happening on the inside and how you're beginning to perceive and feel about things? You can't articulate those things in words, but the Holy Spirit can and does. Not articulated with our own words and our own thoughts, but with Him. Now, what this is describing is what Paul, all the way through his epistles, described praying and speaking in the Spirit. Over in 1 Corinthians chapter 14, verse 15, it says this, "What is it then," Paul says, "by the Holy Spirit, I will pray with the Spirit, and I will pray with the understanding also. I will sing with the Spirit, and I will sing with the understanding also." Well, first let's talk about the understanding. This is talking about my mental abilities. It's talking about my thoughts, all right? And so I pray with my thoughts, what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling. It also talks about my emotions. It even talks about my will, okay? So I'm trying to express in words my will, my feelings, my emotions concerning what I'm praying. Proseuchomai, prayer. It's just the regular Greek word for prayer. I pray or I make a petition to God. Only I'm doing this before God so that I might receive the answer to my prayer. But the verse before that, this is 1 Corinthians 14:15, but in 1 Corinthians 14:14, he tells us what this praying in the Spirit is. We kind of just talked about praying with our understanding, but he said, "For I pray with the Spirit and I pray with the understanding." Do you know there's two ways you can pray? You can pray with the Spirit, and you can pray with the understanding. Well, what is praying with the Spirit? All right. Well, in verse 14, it says this, "For I may pray, proseuchomai, I may make a petition to God in," he said, "an unknown tongue." And if I do that, that's my spirit praying. But my understanding's unfruitful. So if I pray in the Spirit, I'm praying in this thing called an unknown tongue. Now, unfortunately, the word tongues is greatly misunderstood in the Christian world today. Really, the word tongues was not used in the Bible. It's not the word tongues in the actual ancient Greek wording. It is the word languages. It's the word glossolalia, glossolalia. It's in the plural most of the time, and it simply means languages. But back in the 1500s, a man named Tyndale came out with an English translation. He was, by the way, he was burned at the stake because the church of that day didn't believe that the people could read and understand the Bible. Putting it in the language of common people, they believed the church would sacrifice people. So they burned him at the stake, did something wrong. Well, thank God he started a wave of translations, especially into English and out of the old Latin language that the Catholic Church of the day used. And so in that one, it was called tongues. Now, tongues is simply glossolalia, and it's the Greek word for languages. He said, if I speak in languages, all right? Listen, kind of get beyond tongues. Tongues has got a bad rap, okay? Yeah, I know our King James uses the word tongues. Many modern translations follow suit and use the word tongues, but its usage has only been about 500 years or so that it's actually been used as the word tongues, maybe even not quite that long. For 1,000 years, it was used as just languages. Paul said in the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 13, he said, though I speak in the tongues or the languages of men and of angels. So this is talking about a supernatural gift, as we talked last week over in the book of 1 Corinthians 12, an ability of the Holy Spirit to speak in languages that are beyond our mental capacities. Well, how do we do that? I've not studied all these languages. Yeah, but the Holy Spirit knows every language. He knows all the languages of people on earth, people who study that. Scientific, it says about 12,000 languages and dialects spoken in the world today. 12,000, and the Holy Spirit knows all of them. I mean, otherwise, how could somebody pray in one of those ancient tribal dialects and God answer their prayers? No, He knows all of them. But it also says that we speak with the languages, plural, of angels. That's again 1 Corinthians 13, verse 1. And so you can speak. Do you know they have multiple languages in heaven? Isn't that amazing? And according to Paul in 1 Corinthians and then over in other epistles, we can speak in all those languages. Not of our own abilities, though. It takes the power and the voice of the Holy Spirit. So I then, in verse 15 of 1 Corinthians 14, I can pray with the Spirit. When I'm praying with the Spirit, I can speak in all those languages, but I can also pray with my understanding. Now, the Holy Spirit, though, He makes intercession for us. We read in Romans 8:26. How does He do that? In these languages, these sounds that we don't understand. The King James says groanings, but it's not talking about a groan. It's talking about these sounds that rise from the inside of us. And it's the Holy Spirit making intercession with us. Even though when I'm doing that, my understanding is unfruitful. I don't understand what I'm saying, but God the Holy Spirit is talking to God the Father. He's praying for me in languages I don't understand, but we're talking God praying to God here. Does that make sense to you? And it's a prayer that gets answered immediately. Nothing is left out. Now he goes on here in other verses. So he said here, I can pray in this language. I pray with my understanding. I pray with this languages, these unknown languages, or the King James tongues. But there's other verses that talk about this. In 1 Corinthians 14:2, it says, for he that speaketh in an unknown tongue or an unknown language speaks not unto men, but unto God. So I can now speak, not just pray. Two different Greek words. You know, in the Bible, words mean something, all right? And so there's praying, but then there's also speaking. Now, this word speaking is a different Greek word than praying. It's a Greek word, lalelio, and it means to proclaim something, to give a command, to declare something. So I can pray, and I can declare, and I can give commands in praying in these languages, or praying in the Spirit. For he that speaketh in an unknown language speaks not unto men, but unto God. For no man understands him, howbeit in the Spirit, or literally in spirit, he is proclaiming, declaring, and giving commands to the circumstances of life. Well, that's what the Holy Spirit does when He begins to intercede for us. He starts giving commands. He starts speaking and declaring things. He starts speaking the mysteries of God into existence for our bodies. And it goes on, 1 Corinthians 13, I speak with the languages of men and angels. He says that I'm not, as long as I'm doing it in love, I am not as a sounding brass or tingling cymbal. You and I need to learn how to pray in these two types of prayers. We need to learn how to pray in the type of action which is languages or tongues in the King James Version, making petitions to God. See, a petition is Lord, I am petitioning you. I'm requesting this of you. I'm asking. I can pray in my understanding, making petition. But I also, he said, can pray in these languages by the Holy Spirit. Now the Spirit speaks through me, comes out of my own mouth. I close my eyes. I shut the door by entering into my closet, and I start making petitions to God in my known language, but then in unknown language, letting the Holy Spirit fill in all the gaps and all the holes, all the things that I don't know to ask for. He starts doing that on my behalf. What fool would not want God the Holy Spirit to do this for them? Come on, listen to me, all right? But I can also now, after I pray, now I can begin to speak in these. I can speak to the circumstance. I can speak to the sickness. I can make decrees. I can proclaim. I can give command. Now, it's actually the Spirit doing it out of my mouth, rising up from the inside, doing it out of my mouth. But we're talking perfect prayers here. We're not talking just the prayers of my understanding. I mean, thank God for that. I'm using my faith in that, but I don't know everything. Maybe you do. And if you do, I got lots of questions I'd like to ask you, all right? I don't know everything yet, but the Holy Spirit of God who dwells inside of me, He knows everything. He knows the exact word. He looks forward in the future. He knows every minute circumstance that needs to be addressed so that my prayers and petitions to God can be fulfilled. He knows how to give the commands to the right thing. The mountains be removed. How to reach out and grab hold of the things that needs to be added to me. He makes those petitions and gives those commands, issues those decrees, tells sickness, you get out. He can do all that. I am limited in my understanding and knowing how to do that, and therefore I pray imperfect prayers in my understanding, but I pray perfect, full prayers when I am praying in the Spirit. The Holy Spirit will make petitions to the Father and then give commands to circumstances when I am praying and when I am speaking in tongues. Now, over the years, I have been learning how to do this, all right? I've been learning that, especially in healing, ministering healing to other people, certainly receiving healing for myself, but I do a lot of ministering healing to other people. And when I do that, I don't have words. I don't know, what am I praying about? Recently, my wife and I, we went to the hospital, prayed for a dear sister that really has been kind of bedridden for some time. And they were basically thinking she was dying. We went there and prayed. I didn't know what to pray. I mouthed some things of my understanding and gave some commands and decrees of my own understanding. But then I spoke things out in the Spirit, filling all the gaps in. And you know what? That was just 2 days ago. We found out, well, she's getting better. Well, they were saying she wasn't going to wake up, and now she's getting better. Isn't that amazing? The power that the Holy Spirit praying through you and I can do. Over the years, I've asked people, I'd come to them and they'd ask me to pray for them. I travel and I do that part-time. My wife and I here, we have in Traverse City, Michigan, we have our own church that we pastor together. She does a lot of the pastoral work. I'm a prophet and a teacher, and so we do this together, this ministry together. But I like a lot of times people will ask me to pray for them, and I'll begin to dialogue. Right now, tell me what's going on. And if they do, I'm listening with the ears, not just of my mind. I'm listening to the ears of my spirit. I'm listening what the Spirit would say on the inside of me. And so then I ask them, and then I realize, all right, here's what this is happening. Here's what this is happening. And I realize now the Spirit's the one that can address that. So then I always like to ask them. Now, may I pray for you? And, people almost 99.9% will say, yes, would you? Absolutely. But then I throw in maybe a little monkey wrench, okay? I'm not doing it to deceive them, but I ask them, can I pray for you my way? Am I allowed to pray for you my way? And every now and then have somebody say, well, what do you mean your way? Well, I'm going to pray with my understanding, but then I'm going to pray in the Spirit also. I've had some people say no to me. I remember many years ago, found out about this after the fact. They didn't say it to me audibly to my ears, but they said it to themselves and to other people. I was talking about this subject, praying in the Spirit, letting the Spirit begin to speak to that sickness and disease to get out of your body. And this person was fighting sickness. They had come specifically, I guess, to be prayed for. But then they told the people that had invited them and came there, said, well, that guy's saying he's going to pray in the Spirit, pray in that tongues. I don't want any of that. I'm not having him pray for me. And so he left without me giving prayer, even knowing to offer prayer for him. And he died 6 months later. Listen, tradition is one thing, but my goodness, why let tradition get in the way of your healing when you don't know it all yet? Neither do I, but I've learned some things, and I've learned the Holy Spirit knows it all. Why would you want to get in the way of that for somebody to say, I can pray and loose the Holy Spirit's voice, and He can deal with this. He can give some commands. He'll tell that to get out of your body. He'll take every little minute cell. He knows how to pray over it, and He will pray beyond our understanding. So I like to ask people, can I pray my way? And I love it when people say, yes, you pray however you want. I just want you to pray. I believe in your prayers also. And so I'll start by praying with my understanding, and then I break into praying in the Spirit. I remember a dear friend of mine, went to school with him, and he was being eaten up with cancer. And so he flew all the way to Traverse City from Ohio, and he came up here, and he's getting ready to fly out, and then he takes us over to the corner. He says, would you pray for me? Absolutely. And I asked him, can I pray my way? Well, he was not of my persuasion of church and denominations and beliefs, but he was a Christian. He said, you pray however you want. So I did right there in the airport. I prayed with my understanding, prayed with the Spirit. He flew home. A couple weeks later, I got an email from him. The doctor said, well, this is in complete remission. Now, unfortunately, he disconnected from me for a while, and then I found out, oh my God, it came back again. After many, many, many months, it came back again. I could have prayed him out of that again, but he was, all of a sudden, he's disappointed. He's discouraged now, and he just wouldn't seem to listen to the possibility that I could pray again, and this would happen. But God set him free once. Man, He said, you pray however you want to pray. And so I like to ask people that. Many times people say, yes, pray the way. But every now and then I'll run into somebody and they'll look at me and say, what do you mean pray your way? I said, well, I'm probably going to pray a little different than the way your church prays or the way you've been taught to pray. It doesn't mean I'm right and you're wrong. It's just going to be different. And I've had one or two people said, no, don't do that. If you're not going to pray the way that I pray, it's kind of silly, but I think we just don't want to let go. Why would we let God decide the prayers to be prayed when we're asking Him to heal us, to set us free, to deliver us from this warfare of this sickness and this disease? Man, we want every kind of prayer, especially the praying of the Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit, pray, my God, pray, Holy Spirit. Make intercession for me concerning this infirmity. This is trying to kill me. It's trying to disable me. It's trying to bring me down, make me weak and incapacitated. Pray, Holy Spirit. And so that's what you want. That's what I want. We want the Holy Spirit to pray. Now, I got filled with the Holy Spirit many, many decades ago. So I've been on a journey learning what that means. I've been on a journey learning how to loose Him in His fullness. And that's what I'm here to teach you about. I'm not going to be afraid. Like I said, tongues gets a bad rap in this hour. It goes back to the turn of the last century when many Christians in the beginning of what many historians call the Second Pentecost in the early 1900s, where the Holy Spirit started being poured out upon people and in church services, and they began to speak with tongues or in languages, a supernatural ability to speak in languages their mind didn't know, but they learned how to free their spirit, so to speak. And then all the other denominations began, whoa, wait a minute, this is not part of our belief. We don't know if we like this. Then people started leaving the churches of some of those denominations and joining with those people that did this. And so they began to really come against speaking in tongues or these multiple languages, saying it was of the devil. God didn't do that today. The people were deceived. It was demon spirits speaking through them. And it caused a lot of fear in people. You know, when you don't understand something, seems like our first inclination is fear, especially good things that are being brought to you by God, by the Holy Spirit. The devil will immediately say, oh no, don't do that. Don't. And you know, when you're not taught, you just don't know. And so you push back a little bit from that. Don't push back from praying in the Spirit. Listen, next week I'm going to come back with another lesson, and we're going to get into the specific detail. I'm going to walk you through being filled with the Spirit so that you can pray in these languages also, and you can get, not just have to write Tim Mannn and get him to pray for you, that you can pray also, loosing the Holy Spirit's prayers and voice against the sickness and the disease that is trying to come against you. All right, I hope you got something out of this lesson today. I'm looking forward to next week, and I hope you are too, to come back and to have this next lesson be a special lesson, how to pray in the Spirit. And we're going to begin to teach that to you in this next week. God bless you.